Here's your latest African news. Worldwide, Soul Cap, Afro swim cap Olympic rejection is heartbreaking for black swimmers. Young black swimmers are disappointed and heartbroken by a decision to ban a swimming cap from the Olympics that's actually made to cover their hair. Soul Cap say the international governing body for swimming rejected an application for their caps to be certified for use at competitions. They say FINA told them the caps are unsuitable because they don't follow the natural form of the head. Soul Cap makes swimming caps to fit over and protect dreadlocks, afros, weaves, hair extensions, braids, and thick and curly hair. There are very few black swimming coaches and competitive swimmers, and with so many barriers already existing, FINA has decided to add yet another. South Africa. South African court agrees to hear Zuma's challenge to jail term. A South African court on Saturday agreed to hear ex-President Jacob Zuma's challenge to a 15-month jail term for failing to attend a corruption hearing, as hundreds of supporters gathered outside the homestead of Nkandla in a show of force. The Constitutional Court had on Tuesday given Zuma 15 months in jail for absconding in February from the inquiry led by Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Zuma had until the end of Sunday to hand himself in, but on Saturday the court agreed to hear his application, suspending the order yet again. The ex-leader has applied to the court for the sentence to be annulled on grounds that it is excessive and could expose him to the COVID-19 virus. Ethiopia. Tigray forces issue ceasefire conditions. Tigray Defense Forces that retook regional capital Mekelle from Ethiopian government forces have issued conditions for a truce with the central administration. Shortly after Mekelle was captured on Monday afternoon, the Ethiopian government announced a unilateral ceasefire. A day later, Tigrayan forces categorically ruled out a truce, with the spokesman of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, Getachew Reda, saying their forces would keep fighting until the Ethiopian military and its allied forces completely withdrew from the region. However, in a statement issued on Sunday, the restored Tigray government said as far as an ironclad guarantee is secured to ensure the people of Tigray don't suffer any new invasions, they would accept a ceasefire in principle. Southern Africa. Southern African bloc to probe Eswatini protest violence. A team from the Southern African Development Community, SADC, will arrive in Eswatini this week after the kingdom was rocked by pro-democracy protests and claims of a deadly crackdown. The kingdom's government said it had invited the Southern African Development Community, SADC, to carry out a fact-finding mission. Ethiopia. Ethiopian people raise over $20 million for Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Over 1.9 billion birr has been secured from various income-generating schemes for the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. During the past 11 months of the current fiscal year, Office of the National Council for the Coordination of Public Participation on the construction of GERD. The public has demonstrated overwhelming participation in financing the construction of the mega dam. During the past 10 years, the country has managed to collect 15.6 billion birr from the public to the GERD. Preparations has been finalized to launch the GERD network that would have multiple importance in mobilizing funds for the mega dam, thereby supporting Ethiopia's vision to prosper. The network would bring individual and societal knowledge to support the national efforts to ensure the development and utilization of natural resources. Nigeria. 11 authors in contention for a 100,000 Nigeria Prize in Literature. The Nigeria Prize for Literature rotates yearly amongst 4 literary categories: prose fiction, poetry, drama, and children's literature. The advisory board for the Nigeria Prize for Literature has announced a shortlist of 11 drawn from the 202 books in the running for the 2021 edition of this prize. The judges described the shortlist as fresh approaches to looking at issues using new and exciting narrative strategies, techniques, and well-written organic plots to present topical discussions in realistic ways. The judges stated that there has been a visible improvement in writing skills and commended Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas, founder and sponsor of the prize, for giving writers a platform to blossom and even experiment. Namibia teenagers barred from Olympic 400 over testosterone. Two 18-year-old runners from Namibia were barred Friday from running in the 400 meter at the Olympics because of high natural testosterone levels, becoming the latest female athletes to be affected by the same contentious regulations that have sidelined Caster Semenya, Christine Mboma, and Beatrice Masilingi, who burst into Olympic medal reckoning with some blistering fast times this year, were subjected to medical assessments by track governing body World Athletics at their training camp in Italy. The Namibia Olympic Committee has now announced they were withdrawn from the 400 meter race by the Namibian team after the test revealed high natural testosterone, which meant they wouldn't be allowed to run in the 400 in Tokyo. Their exclusion from the 400 sparked angry reactions and criticism of the rules from numerous political parties in Namibia. Many Africans seems to apply to African women after European women complained to the governing bodies as to why they can never beat the African counterparts. Let's see what happens with that. Africa-wide, discriminatory EU vaccines passport is a mark of duplicity. A plan by the European Union not to recognize COVID-19 vaccines manufactured outside the bloc could possibly set back global efforts to contain this pandemic. The intended vaccines passport by the EU risks leaving out travelers from developing countries who have largely received their vaccines but were made outside the EU and the United States. What's more unfortunate is that some EU member states have been actively donating vaccines that are not recognized by the European Medicines Agency to poor countries, such as the Covishield. The narrow list of vaccines accepted in the EU is a continuation of policy decisions by the bloc that have unfortunately had serious implications on global vaccination drives. As COVID-19 vaccines emerge, rich economies across the globe within the EU rush to purchase billions of doses of the commodities, leaving little for developing countries to purchase. The unparalleled vaccine hoarding pushed poor countries to the end of the queue, an anomaly that exists still to this date. Zimbabwe. Villagers fight Chinese coal mining project near wildlife reserve. Conservationists in Zimbabwe are trying to rally opposition to a Chinese coal mining project planned in a district within the country's biggest national park. Critics say locals and wildlife will be affected and are urging authorities to move away from coal production toward renewable energies. Most Dinde villagers in Hwange district say they are opposed to the coal mining project by Befa Investments, but many are unwilling to speak up for fear of retaliation. About 600 families fear being displaced if the coal project goes ahead. Other villagers are worried, so worried, that the project will take away grazing land for their cattle and their wildlife. Ghana plans to issue Africa's first social bonds with $2 billion sale. Ghana is planning to issue green and social bonds of up to $2 billion by November, which would make it the first African country to sell debt to fund development programs. The West African economy of Ghana, which is planning to borrow up to $5 billion on international markets this year, would use the proceeds that they get from these sustainable bonds to then refinance debt used for social and environmental projects and pay for education and for health. Ghana would be pioneering social bonds in Africa, seizing on an instrument that's boomed since the coronavirus pandemic. Still, only a few foreigners have sold them so far, including Chile and Ecuador. The country will use the proceeds to forge ahead with the free secondary school initiative that started back in 2017, among other such programs, despite having recorded its lowest economic growth rates in 37 years in 2020. South Africa. Interpol issues red notice against the Guptas. South African prosecutors on Monday announced a key step in their bid to extradite Indian-born brothers who were allegedly at the center of a massive web of corruption in the country of South Africa. The three Gupta brothers, Ajay, Atul, and Rajesh, are at the center of a long-running probe into the embezzlement of state assets under former President Jacob G. Zuma. In a statement, the prosecution authority's chief investigator, Hermione Cronje, said Interpol had issued a red notice against two of the brothers, Atul and Rajesh. Red notices are a global alert enabling law enforcers to arrest a person sought for prosecution or serving a sentence and detain them pending extradition. The three brothers are at the center of a 2016 graft report by South Africa's anti-corruption watchdog, which claims they paid bribes in exchange for massive state contracts and influence ministerial appointments. They fled South Africa shortly after a judicial commission started in 2018 and are suspected to be in the United Arab Emirates. Egypt. Egypt denounces Ethiopia's new move to fill the Nile Dam. Egypt has denounced Ethiopia's decision to begin filling the reservoir behind its giant hydropower dam on the Blue Nile for a second year. The Egyptian Irrigation Minister Mohamed Abdel Ati said he'd received official notice of the filling from Ethiopia and had categorically rejected it. He said in a statement that the unilateral move was a violation of international laws and norms that regulate projects built on the shared basins of international rivers, including the Nile River. The minister has also written to the United Nations Security Council, informing it of the latest measure by Ethiopia, the statement adds. The council is due to meet to discuss the matter this Thursday. Egypt and Sudan had warned Ethiopia that it should wait. It's better to wait until they'd all reached a legally binding agreement on the operation of the dam. Algeria. Dozens of Algerians are hospitalised after swimming in the sea. Nearly 150 people have been hospitalised in northwest Algeria after swimming in what's believed to have been polluted seawater. They were suffering from nausea and vomiting. There is currently speculation that a ship carrying livestock was to blame for the pollution. 3 beaches and desalination plants have been closed and an investigation launched in Chlef, a locality that includes Tennis, the report said. An official statement said an Environment Ministry team had taken air and water samples from the port at Tennis, beaches, and even in other locations. Nigeria. Nigeria is not a dumping ground, government warns importers. There will be no hiding place for foreign nationals and their collaborators who want to turn the country into a dumping ground for substandard products. Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otunba Ni Adebayo, has said. Adebayo gave the warning at a commissioning of Standard Organization of Nigeria office and laboratory during the weekend. He said the amended SON Act of 2015 empowers the agency to arrest, confiscate and prosecute offenders. SON will come hard on violators and is prepared to work with individuals or groups to actively and collectively improve the lives of Nigerians through standards and to make Nigeria stand tall in the Committee of Nations. Adebayo said the federal government would build more laboratories to boost the testing of products. He commended the SON Director General Malam Farouk Salim for the timely completion of the state office and for partnering with states on the development of micro, small and medium enterprises. DRC. Belgium begins long road to returning stolen Congolese artifacts. Belgium's Africa Museum will begin a multi-year process of returning stolen art to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Belgian government announced this on Tuesday. From the late 19th century to 1960, thousands of artworks, including wooden statues, elephant ivory masks, manuscripts, and musical instruments were stolen, unfortunately, by Belgian and other Europeans in the form of scientists, explorers, and soldiers. Following a recent $78 million overhaul of the Africa Museum to take a more critical view of Belgium's colonial past, Belgium now claims it is ready to meet DRC's calls for restitution. Tens of millions of Congolese are estimated to have been massacred by Belgium from the late 19th century, when Congo was first a personal property of King Leopold II, before becoming then a colony of the Belgian state. Mozambique. Community leaders become allies in ending child marriage in the country. In December of 2019, the Mozambican parliament approved its first law criminalizing unions with minors under the age of 18. This was the culmination of years of efforts by the government, civil society, and rights-based organizations that were concerned that almost half the girls in Mozambique married before the age of 18. Despite this legal milestone, there is fear that the restrictions imposed by COVID-19 may result in an increase in child marriage in Mozambique, as it has in other countries. To mitigate this risk, the Spotlight Initiative is working collaboratively with public institutions, civil society, and a network of around 300 community leaders to educate communities about the harmful effects of child marriage and to teach them about the country's recently approved law which criminalizes it. Namibia. Namibia calls out World Athletics. World Athletics acted with unfortunate negligence and insensitivity after inexplicably breaking a confidentiality agreement with the Namibia National Olympic Committee and Athletics Namibia over the handling of the Beatrice Masilinga and Christine Mboma cases. Last week, World Athletics barred the 18-year-old track sensations from competing in the 400 meters at the upcoming 2020 Olympics in Japan due to their elevated natural testosterone levels. That news came as a shock to the nation and indeed the NNOC president, Abner Joagub, who yesterday claimed that WA went behind their backs in making the matter public. He added that it was unacceptable of an invasion of the athletes' rights to privacy and to the confidentiality of their health records. He also stated that the agreement was to treat the matter with the respect and the confidentiality it deserved because of the sensitivity of it. But unfortunately, World Athletics did not do anything of the kind. Ethiopia. Ethiopia mourns philanthropist Abebek. Ethiopians are mourning a humanitarian icon, Abebek Gobena. She founded one of the first orphanages in Ethiopia. Abebek, who was 85, was being treated for COVID-19 at a hospital in the capital of Addis Ababa. Since the beginning of June, she was known by a term of affection, Edaye, by the many children she raised as well as the community. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed described Abebek as Ethiopia's icon of compassion. Although she did not have biological children of her own, Abebek raised thousands of children. For her kindness, she received many awards in the country and abroad, including an honorary doctorate from the Jimma University in Ethiopia. She will always be remembered for her selfless acts and as a role model for generations to come. Kenya. Kenyan scientist doctor creates reusable nano mask. A Kenyan scientist and doctor at Kenyatta National Hospital has created an antiviral surgical mask that kills viruses on contact. The new innovation, called a nano mask, is a creation of Dr. Joseph Nderitu, who, when COVID-19 struck, saw how some masks in the market were substandard and caused allergic reactions for some of their wearers. He said even doctors who wore two masks, one on top of the other, were still getting infected. He wanted to produce a mask that not only filtered but also killed microbes, was reusable, and could reduce allergies like the peeling of skin and the inhalation of allergic agents that caused asthma. The doctor stated that the main challenge for his intervention was that nanotechnology is a new field of science and therefore there aren't readily available how-to manuals and ready-made equipment on the scene. There aren't people with whom to consult and bounce ideas off either. It is rather an expensive undertaking as well. Nigeria. Soyinka accuses Nigerian government of kidnapping Nnamdi Kanu. The Nigerian government kidnapped Nnamdi Kanu from a foreign country in order to bring him to trial in Nigeria. Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka has said. Mr. Soyinka condemned the Nigerian government's actions and also criticized Mr. Kanu's hate rhetoric while he was hiding outside the country. The Nobel laureate said there could be a nationwide furor when the truth about the circumstances surrounding the arrest of Mr. Kanu goes public. Ethiopia. Ethiopia tells UNSC it rejects unwelcome meddling by League of Arab Emirates. In a letter from Deputy Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs, Demeke Mekonnen, and sent to the United Nations Security Council, Ethiopia says it rejects the unwelcome meddling by the League of Arab States on the matter of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The letter followed the Arab League's submission of a letter to the United Nations Security Council and United Nations General Assembly to intervene in this matter. The letter also noted that the AU, as a common organization for Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan, offers the tripartite platform to negotiate and reach a win-win outcome, guided by the conviction of finding African solutions to Africans' challenges. Ethiopia also reiterates its request for the international community to encourage Egypt and Sudan to abide by the accepted principles of international law on the utilization of transboundary water resources. Worldwide, Swahili can unite Africa. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has called on Africans to speak Swahili to aid in unifying the continent. In a speech on African Integration Day, which marks progress in bringing the continent together, Museveni described Swahili as a neutral language to unite us. It's a non-ethnic and belongs to nobody. During the speech, he lamented that Africans were not currently unified. As a non-European language, Swahili has often been spoken about as an alternative to English, French, or even Portuguese, as a means for cross-continental communication, but the idea has been slow to become a reality. East Africa. East African intelligence chiefs call for united front against terrorism. A senior representative of the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Claude Ibalanki Ekolomba, has called for a united front to combat terrorism in East Africa. He said this at the fourth meeting of heads of intelligence and security service of the DRC, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania in Bujumbura, centered on the theme confidence building towards enhanced regional cooperation and neutralized negative forces. The meeting of the heads of intelligence and security services was the fourth edition. The meeting also had in attendance representatives from the Secretary General of the United Nations in the Great Lakes region, a delegate from MONUSCO, and the African Union as well. Zambia. Zambia holds state funeral for Kaunda after court rejects burial site petition. Zambia held a church service on yesterday as it prepared to bury its founding president Kenneth Kaunda, who died last month. The High Court in Lusaka dismissed a late application filed by the family challenging Kaunda's burial at a site reserved for former presidents. The family had argued that Kaunda wished to be interred at his private residence. The hero of the struggle against white rule in southern Africa died on June the 17th and was laid to rest yesterday, following a state memorial held last week at the city's 60,000-seat National Heroes Stadium. Diaspora. Haiti President Jovenel Moise killed at his home. A group of gunmen wielding assault weapons assassinated Haitian President Jovenel Moise and wounded his wife at their home in the hills overlooking Port-au-Prince early on Wednesday, plunging the Western Hemisphere nation deeper into a destabilizing crisis. The attack by assailants that Haitian authorities described as commandos comes amid months of escalating political instability and gang violence that have critically eroded the rule of law in the Caribbean nation of 11 million people. Moise, 53, dissolved parliament in January 2020 and ruled by decree as opponents and protesters demanded that he step down. Armed gangs with unclear allegiances have seized control of growing portions of the country, terrorizing the population. Kenya. Kenya will be hosting the WRC Safari Rally for the next 5 years. President Uhuru Kenyatta announced that Kenya has secured the hosting rights of the elite motorsport event from the International Automobile Federation and the WRC after years of intense lobbying and preparations. He also announced that the government had plans to commence preparations for the next year's WRC Safari Rally immediately. He made the announcement on Sunday when he presided over the presentation of prizes to winners of the 2021 WRC Safari Rally. With the successful hosting of the 2021 WRC Safari Rally, the president said Kenya had demonstrated to the world that it is prepared to host global events despite the logistical challenges posed by the COVID-19 virus. South Africa. Jacob Zuma hands himself over to the police. South African former President Jacob G. Zuma has handed himself in to police to begin serving a 15-month jail sentence for contempt of court. He was admitted to Escort Correctional Center in his home province of KwaZulu-Natal on Wednesday. Police had warned that they were prepared to arrest him if he did not hand himself over by midnight. Zuma, at the age of 79, was handed the jail term last week after he failed to attend a corruption inquiry. The sentencing sparked an unprecedented legal drama in South Africa, which has never seen a former president jailed before. Zuma had initially refused to hand himself in, but in a short statement on Wednesday, the Jacob Zuma Foundation said he had decided to comply. His daughter, Dudu Zuma Sambundla, later wrote on Twitter that her father was en route and he is still in high spirit. Nigeria. Senate approves Buhari's request for $6.1 billion external loan. The upper chamber of the National Assembly has approved President Muhammadu Buhari's request for the authorization of $6.1 billion as external borrowing in the 2021 Appropriation Act. The external borrowing is expected to be sourced through the issuance of Eurobond in the international capital market. The approval by Senate on Wednesday was sequel to the consideration of a report by the Committee on Local and Foreign Debts. Kenya not consulted about UK's charity elephant project. Confusion has erupted over plans to fly a herd of elephants from Kent to Kenya after the Kenyan Wildlife Service said it had not been contacted or consulted about this operation. On Monday, the Aspinall Foundation announced ambitious plans to transport 13 savanna elephants born and bred in captivity almost 4,500 miles from their home at Howlett's Wild Animal Park to a site in the East African country in partnership with the Kenya Wildlife Service. But on Wednesday, Kenya's Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife tweeted its concern about newspaper reports of the plan and said it had not been contacted. Nigeria. Government demands unconditional repatriation of looted Benin works from Germany. The federal government has instructed Germany to ensure a full and unconditional return of the 1,130 Benin artifacts that were looted from the country in the 19th century and domiciled in German museums. Minister of Information and Culture Alhaji Lai Mohammed made the demand on Wednesday during meetings in Berlin with German Minister of State for Culture, Prof. Monica Guptas, and Foreign Minister Mr. Heiko Maas. He insisted the return should be whole rather than substantial, on the heel of remarks by Guptas that the European nation was ready to make a substantial return of the 1,130 looted artifacts. He also said the issue of provenance, which has to do with the place of origin of the artifacts, shouldn't actually be allowed to unduly delay the repatriation of these artworks. Ghana. Anger in Ghana over pay for the president and VP's wife. Ghanaians have expressed outrage at the decision by MPs to approve salaries for the wives of the president and vice president for the supportive role that they play. The First Lady and the Second Lady have always been given allowances over the years as part of executive privileges. But Ghanaians are unhappy because they will now receive cabinet-level salaries at a time of economic hardship. they could be receiving about $3,500 a month, which is expected to be backdated all the way to 2017. Some have also argued that there is no provision in the constitution for this arrangement. The youth wing of the largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, has threatened to file a lawsuit at the Supreme Court to challenge the MP's decision. South Africa. Jacob Zuma could be freed on parole in 4 months. Former South African President Jacob Zuma could be freed from prison in just 4 months. The Justice Minister said this on Thursday, a day after the ex-leader stunned his compatriots by turning himself in to the police to start a 15-month sentence. Zuma had initially indicated he saw his sentence as biased and illegitimate, as his move on Wednesday was seen as a victory for the post-apartheid state's efforts to enforce the rule of law in the country. Justice Minister Ronald Lamola told journalists outside Escort Correctional Center, where Zuma is being held, that the former leader would be eligible for parole in 4 months. Botswana diamonds, second huge stone unearthed in just 1 month. An exceptionally large and white 1,100 carat diamond stone has been unearthed in Botswana, trumping another huge precious stone that was found in the African country in June. The latest find, which fills the palm of a large hand, was also discovered in June on the 12th. It was found by the Canadian diamond firm Lucara and presented to the country's cabinet in Gaborone on Wednesday, being the second largest gemstone ever discovered. Last month, Botswanan diamond firm Debswana said it had recovered the third largest stone in the world at 1,098 carats. Zimbabwe. China in trouble with Zimbabwean unions over systematic abuse. Chinese diplomats are embroiled in a vicious war of words with Zimbabwe's labor unions over allegations that business people from the Asian country are abusing their local employees. Unions say the Zimbabwean government often looks the other way when they report Chinese for employers for violation of labor laws. The Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, ZCTU, the largest labor center representing private sector employees in the country, recently torched a storm when it used social media to expose what it described as slave-like working conditions at a Chinese-owned tile manufacturing factory on the outskirts of Harare. Unionists claimed some workers had even died at the factory, and their deaths were concealed by the Chinese. The Chinese embassy in Harare, however, reacted angrily to the accusations and warned they might damage relationships between the country and Zimbabwe. Diaspora. First African American wins U.S. Scripps National Spelling Bee. Zyla Avant-Garde, a 14-year-old from New Orleans, won the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee on Thursday night, becoming the first African American winner in the competition's nearly 100-year history. Zyla Avant-Garde sealed her victory by correctly spelling the word Mariah, a type of plant, after having to reset on another botanical word, Nepata, in a previous round. The 14-year-old girl will receive $50,000 cash prize. Zimbabwe. You can't lecture us on democracy, ED tells the West. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has again warned Western countries to desist from lecturing Zimbabwe on the need to uphold human rights, as the same states were involved in the worst abuses against their citizens. Mnangagwa was speaking Wednesday at the State House, where he was bidding farewell to Zimbabwe's ambassador to the United Nations, Albert Chimbindi, and ambassador designate to Mozambique, Victor Matemadanda. Mnangagwa also said Zimbabwe waged a protracted liberation struggle to bring majority rule and ensure human rights flourishes. Thank you so much for watching. Visit our YouTube channel, Tunacheki, to watch our weekly news reports, and our website at tunacheki.tv for all the latest African news updates. You can directly support this news series by becoming our YouTube member or becoming a patron. And remember that Africa is watching. And please feel free to leave your suggestions, news tips, or topics about Africa that you'd like us to explore.